simple question for you guys. Are Teslas any good in the snow? And today we've got the two perfect cars to find out because, well, it's been snowing all night, so we've got a couple of inches of snow on the ground, and we've got two cars that are very similar, but very different in one important way. Let me show you. This is an almost brand new Tesla Model X dual motor, which means that it's got two motors, which means that it's all-wheel drive. And really there are three things that determine how good a vehicle is in the snow. First, how much ground clearance does it have? This car has air suspension, plenty of ground clearance. Number two, what kind of an all-wheel drive system does it have? This has Tesla's latest and greatest all-wheel drive system. It sends power to the wheel that has traction and brakes the wheel that doesn't. And of course, number three, the most important thing I believe, right there. What kind of tires are you running? And this car is running the standard tires that came from the factory. They're all seasons. Now, let's take a look at the Land Rover. This is a brand new Land Rover Discovery, and just like the Tesla, it has air suspension so it can raise itself up. So ground clearance is not an issue. And just like the Tesla, it has a very sophisticated, in this case, four-wheel drive system. In fact, I'll show you when I drive this, because this car will show you where it appropriates power and how it locks its differentials. And most importantly, I believe, is not the all-wheel drive system, not the ground clearance, but this, the tire. And this is where the two vehicles really differ. The Land Rover is running on 275/45/21 Pirelli winter tires. These are dedicated snow tires, and they've got two things going for them. First and foremost, they've got sipes that cut into the snow, but more importantly, the compound here really goes to work when it falls below 44 degrees. It doesn't harden up like a hockey puck, but it actually bites into the snow. Now the Tesla is running on the tires that it came with from Tesla, and these are Continental Cross LX Sport. These are all seasons, and that means they've got an M&S on the side. They're also a little bit smaller. They're 265/45/20s, but what really counts is that these are optimized to work both in the rain, in the dry, and kind of sort of in the snow. Whereas these Scorpions are dedicated snow tires. And the way that you know that is because they have a little snowflake in a mountain right here. And that's what you want to look for when you're looking for snow tires. These just say mud and snow, M&S, but it's a little confusing. Really, these are the tires that make a difference. So let's take them both for a ride and find out if my theory is true. All right, so welcome to the warm confines of the Model X. And I like the Model X because, like I said, it has air suspension. Let me show you that right now. The way that that works is I hit the car here, I do suspension, and you can see that I have very different ride heights. I have very high, high, standard low, and very low, and of course jack. Now in terms of driving, I have acceleration standard or chill, steering mode, regenerative braking, stopping mode, slip start, which basically disengages traction control and stability control, which we don't want. It does help if you're stuck in snow, sand, or mud, but we're not stuck. And I want to use all of this car's electronic goodies to make sure that I don't go flying off the road. So let's take it for a ride and see how this car does in the snow. I think the first thing we should probably try is just a straight out acceleration test and just find a little empty street and give it the electric beans and see what happens. Now keep in mind that this vehicle does have stability control, so it will appropriate power to whichever wheel has the most traction, and it will cut power to whichever wheel doesn't have traction. And that's great because on a day like this, it keeps you from careening into oncoming traffic or flying off the road.
That's more traction control, Dad.
Anyway, let's give it a shot, Tommy. We got a little bit of an uphill here. I've got some fresh snow right here, so that we're actually in fresh snow. Why don't you hop out there and I will floor it up this hill and let's see what happens. And then we'll compare it to the Disco. Cool?
Cool.
So basically what happened there was I floored it, the car cut power, and when it got traction, it actually went. But let's try slip start and see what happens when we turn the nannies off. This should be the more fun acceleration.
Yep. So a lot more freedom in both the traction control and stability control there.
Well, traction control still intervened a little bit, but I did get the car sideways. So let's see if I turn off slip start and just go around the corner, see how this vehicle does. Once again, you can really feel the traction control intervening every time I get on some loose snow. Let's go around this corner and see if it cuts power so that I stay going the way that I'm pointing the wheels as opposed to some other way. All right, here comes a bigger turn. This is going to be the more interesting one. Let's see what happens. All right, hard turn, and whoa! I just went sliding into the sidewalk here. If I'd been going any faster, it would have been much scarier. But really, that's the difference that snow tires versus all seasons make. No matter how much traction control or stability control intervenes, at some point, the second you lose traction, you're a passenger and no longer a driver. So there are really three parts to driving in the snow. There's acceleration, which is, well, a little compromised on all seasons, no matter what the all-wheel drive system. Then of course there's cornering, which is also very compromised. And then the most important one is braking. How fast can you bring a very heavy car to a stop? So I'm going to turn around, Tommy, and I'm going to take this thing up to about 25 miles an hour and then hit the brakes hard, and let's see what happens. And there's 25. Oh yeah, it does steer, but it doesn't stop. Well, the ABS was clattering, the car stopped straight and true, I was in control, but it just didn't want to stop. And that's, once again, due to the tire, I believe, and not any of the magic electronics that are happening in this vehicle.
What about the weight?
Well, it is a heavy vehicle, Tommy. This thing weighs, I think, like 5,400 pounds, and when you get that much weight going, stopping it takes a little bit more adhesion than we have today. So you guys might be wondering, what's the difference between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive? And really, it's that this Land Rover Disco has a low-speed transfer case. So what that means is that I can put it into low gear and then use the engine's torque to multiply its power. But in snow, that doesn't really mean anything because you don't want a lot of power. And in fact, a lot of power, unless you're having fun and doing burnouts, is probably a little bit counterproductive. The cool thing about this Land Rover, not only does it have a low speed transfer case, but it has a snow mode, which optimizes the traction and stability control system for snow, gravel, grass, or perhaps mud. Anyway, the other cool thing is right there. Let me get this camera just a little bit closer so you can see it. And that is, in this vehicle, you can actually see what the differentials are doing. So it has a center differential, which when it locks, allocates the engine's torque or power 50-50 front and rear. So half of it goes to the front, half of it goes to the rear. And it's got a rear locking diff, which then takes that power that's going to the back and allocates it 50-50 to the left or the right wheel. Now, Land Rover has done something really cool, and that is it allows you to see what's locking and what's not locking. And they're not completely locking. They're not always locked or unlocked like a Jeep Wrangler. They can only be partially locked. So we'll do the very same thing we did with the Tesla, and we'll see what the diffs are doing. And more importantly, we'll get to see what the tires are doing, because that's what counts at the end of the day. All right, so now you can see right there that the rear diff is partially locked, even though I'm just standing here. And I bet you with my wheel straight when I floor it that it will completely lock the diff. So let's see if that happens. You ready, Tommy? Okay, here we go. Ooh, the center, look at that, the center just locked too. I gotta tell you, snow tires make driving on snow about as dramatic as driving on pure dry pavement. Sure, there's a little bit of spin, but it's pretty painless. Now, I did notice that both the rear and the center diff locked. Let's see what happens when we go around the turn. All right, so here we go, going around the turn. Coming around, lots of snow. Turn, same speed, and yeah, that was about as dramatic as an episode of Dream Homes and Beautiful Summer Vacations. All right, let's try this one more time. We've got acceleration, we've got cornering, and the final test, of course, is braking. Last time I did this, I took up to 25, and what happened was, by the time I hit the mailbox, I pretty much took the length of the house before the next driveway to come to a complete stop. I think this time the results should be a little different, but let's find out. All right, here we go. Same thing, 25 miles an hour, hit the brakes. Oh, this accelerates a lot better. And there's 25, hit the brakes. Actually, I went a little faster and stopped, I'd say, a little bit over half the distance that it took the Tesla to stop. And that really is where the traction meets the pavement, because in an emergency stop, if you're about to hit somebody or something, you want to be able to get the shortest stopping distance possible, and that alone is worth the cost of these snow tires. Well, that was a lot of fun, and I gotta tell you, I'm impressed with the Tesla's all-wheel drive system. But what we figured out today was that whether it's gas or electric, whether it's four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, what really matters is none of that. What matters is where the tire touches, in this case, the snow. And dedicated snow tires make such a huge difference that if you live in places like Colorado, it doesn't matter if you're all electric or no electric. Really, it's all about the tire. And you know what? We're gonna have to come back and try throwing some snow tires on the Tesla to see how it does when it does have dedicated snow tires. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fastlane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, is it snowing? Heck yes! All-wheel drive versus four-wheel drive versus electric versus non-electric reviews. See you guys later. Ciao.